What do you do when the man you love, the man who vowed to protect you, becomes the one who hurts you the most? When trust is shattered in a moment of violence, and the life you built with him turns into a nightmare you can't escape? For me, Juniper, it all started with a slap, and everything I thought I knew about my family and my marriage was ripped apart in an instant. Stay tuned to find out how Juniper begins her journey from fear to strength, fighting for herself and her son, and how she finds the courage to escape the cycle of abuse. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more stories like this, stories of survival, strength, and hope. The peaceful evening was shattered by my baby's frightened cry. My heart raced as I felt a sharp pull on my hair from behind, and before I could protect myself or my son, Caleb's hand struck my face with force. The slap echoed through the room, the sound mingling with Finn's terrified screams. "This is what happens when you can't keep our home clean." Caleb's voice was cold, unfamiliar. This wasn't the man I had married, the man who had held my hand through 9 months of pregnancy. My cheek burned, but the pain in my heart was worse. I held Finn tighter, clutching him close to my chest, trying to shield him from the chaos. I'm Juniper, 28 years old. Just 3 months ago, I gave birth to my beautiful son, Finn. When I first held him in my arms at the hospital, Caleb was right there, tears of joy streaming down his face. We had been married for 4 years, and this was supposed to be our happiest time. The early weeks with Finn were as expected, exhausting, but full of love. I was recovering from a difficult C-section, learning to breastfeed, and figuring out what each little cry meant. Caleb seemed supportive at first, sometimes getting up for night feeds, bringing me water while I nursed. But things started to shift when Finn was about 6 weeks old. The house wasn't as spotless as it used to be. Dishes piled up in the sink. Laundry stayed unfolded. Between feeding Finn every 2 hours and recovering from my surgery, keeping everything perfect was no longer possible. I noticed Caleb's expression changing when he came home from work. He'd scan the living room, taking in the baby toys scattered around, the coffee cups left on the side table, and the basket of laundry on the couch. His face would tighten, but he stayed silent at first. The comments began slowly. "Babe, couldn't you at least put the dishes in the dishwasher? Or did you spend all day at home and not fold a single basket of laundry?" Each word felt like a tiny cut, especially when I was running on 2 hours of sleep, still in my milk-stained pajamas at 4 a.m. I tried to explain how demanding Finn was, how my C-section scar still hurt when I moved too much, and how I was battling postpartum anxiety. But Caleb's patience grew thinner every day. "My mom managed 3 kids and kept a perfect house," he'd say. "Maybe you're just not trying hard enough." That's when his mother started visiting more often. Each visit felt like an inspection. She'd eye every imperfection, every unwashed dish, every blanket left unfolded. She'd run her finger along the windowsill, checking for dust, while holding Finn in her arms, telling me how a clean home was essential for a baby's health. I never thought it would escalate to this. Even as the criticism became harsher, even as Caleb's mother poisoned his mind against me, I never imagined my husband would hurt me. But here we were, on a normal Tuesday evening, with my face stinging from his slap and our baby crying in my arms. That moment, frozen in time, with Finn's cries against my chest and my cheek burning, changed everything. I stumbled back, my legs shaking. His mother stood in the doorway, watching us, her expression cold and unfeeling. She didn't flinch, not even for a second. "Maybe now you'll understand what it means to be a proper wife and mother," she said, her voice eerily calm, as if she were discussing the weather, not witnessing her son strike his wife. I felt sick to my stomach. "Caleb, please," I whispered, still not believing what had happened. "The baby, he's scared." I could feel Finn trembling in my arms, his little face red from crying, but Caleb just stood there, his hands clenched into fists, looking at me like I was a stranger. That night, after Caleb's mother finally left and he went to sleep in the guest room, I sat in Finn's nursery, rocking him gently. My mind was racing. The mobile above his crib spun slowly, casting dancing shadows on the walls, the same mobile Caleb had spent hours putting together when I was seven months pregnant. I thought about all the little changes I'd missed, how Caleb stopped asking about my day, how his mother's visits became more frequent, how the loving texts turned into constant questions about housework. The signs were there, but I was too exhausted, too focused on being a new mom to see them clearly. "It's okay, baby," I whispered to Finn as he finally drifted off to sleep. "Mommy's going to fix this." But how? I had no job. We'd agreed I'd stay home with Finn for at least a year. My parents lived 3 states away. Caleb controlled all our money. The next morning, while Caleb was in the shower getting ready for work, I did something I'd never done before. I took pictures of my face where he'd hit me. My hands were shaking so badly the first few photos were blurry. The red Caleb had turned into a light bruise. Then I texted my best friend, Phoebe. "Can you come over today, please? It's important." Phoebe had been trying to visit for weeks, but I'd always made excuses. Caleb didn't like my friends coming over when the house was messy. Now I realized why he'd been isolating me, bit by bit. When Caleb left for work, he acted like nothing had happened. He kissed Finn's head and tried to kiss me too, but I turned away. "I expect this place to look better when I get home," he said, his voice carrying that new edge of threat. "Mom's coming over for dinner." As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I burst into tears. Finn, sensing my distress, started fussing. I changed him, fed him, and put him in his bouncer. Then I called Phoebe again. "Juniper, what's wrong?" Her voice was filled with concern. "You never call this early." "Can you—" I choked back tears. "Can you come now? And maybe bring your brother?" Phoebe's brother was a police officer. I hadn't planned to say that last part, but somehow it came out. There was a pause on the line. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Don't clean anything. Just wait for me." As I waited, I looked around our living room. Baby toys scattered on the floor, burp cloths draped over the couch, a half-empty cup of cold coffee on the table. This was the reality of life with a newborn. This was normal. What wasn't normal was being afraid in your own home. Phoebe arrived exactly 18 minutes later. I'd been counting every second. When she saw me standing in the doorway, her eyes immediately locked onto my bruised face, and she froze. Behind her, her brother Gage, dressed in his police uniform, stepped in. His expression shifted from concern to anger as he noticed the bruise on my cheek. "Oh my God, Juniper!" Phoebe whispered, rushing toward me and pulling me into a tight hug. I broke down in her arms, all the fear and pain I had been holding onto for weeks finally spilling out. Finn began crying from his bouncer, and Gage gently picked him up, cradling him with the natural ease of a father who had done this many times before. "Tell us everything," Gage said, his voice professional but gentle. "Don't leave anything out." So I did. I told them about Caleb's changing behavior after Finn's birth, how his mother's constant criticism seemed to seep into our lives, how Caleb took control over money and isolated me from my friends. Then I told them about the violence, how it had escalated, culminating in the slap the night before. As I spoke, Phoebe took pictures of my bruised face from different angles, and Gage typed on his phone, taking notes as he listened carefully. "His mother's coming for dinner tonight," I said, my voice shaky. "She'll be here at 6, and Caleb expects the house to be perfect by then." Phoebe and Gage exchanged a look, one I couldn't quite read. "Juniper," Gage said softly, his tone serious. "You know you can't stay here, right? This isn't going to get better. It's going to get worse." I knew he was right, but leaving seemed impossible. "I don't have anywhere to go," I whispered, the words heavy with shame. "No money, no job." "You're coming to my house," Phoebe said firmly. "I've already set up my spare room. We'll grab Finn's things and Gage will help us move everything while Caleb's at work." Gage nodded. "I'm off duty, but I'll call a colleague to make sure everything's documented properly. We need to do this right, for you and Finn." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of activity. Phoebe helped me pack while Gage made calls. His colleague, Officer Linda Chin, arrived shortly after to take my statement and photographs for the official record. She also helped me file for an emergency restraining order. "But what about when Caleb comes home?" I asked, my panic rising. "And his mother?" Phoebe's eyes flashed with fierce determination. "That's the best part. You won't be here. Let them come home to an empty house. Let them see what it feels like to have someone disappear without warning, just like Caleb's love disappeared when you needed it most. As we packed Finn's things, each item seemed to carry a memory: his first yellow onesie, the blanket his mother had knitted, trying to play the perfect grandmother. The mobile that hung over Finn's crib now seemed like a symbol of the false promises Caleb had made. "Don't pack everything," Officer Chin advised, her voice calm but firm. "Just pack what you need for a few days. We can send officers with you to get the rest later." I found myself standing in our bedroom, staring at the wedding photo on the dresser. We looked so happy, so in love. But now, that image felt like a lifetime ago. "I don't understand," I said to Phoebe, who was stuffing my clothes into a suitcase. "How did we get here?" "Abuse doesn't happen all at once," she replied gently. "It's like boiling a frog. The water heats up so slowly you don't notice until it's too late. But you noticed, Juniper. You're getting out before it gets worse. That's what matters." By 3 o'clock, Phoebe's spare room had become our sanctuary. Finn was asleep in a borrowed portable crib, and I sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at my silent phone. It was only a matter of hours before Caleb would come home to an empty house. The first message came at 5:47 p.m. "Where are you? Mom's almost here." Then, at 6 o'clock p.m., "Juniper, answer your phone now!" At 6:15 p.m., the calls started. I watched my phone vibrate across the bedside table, Caleb's face flashing on the screen. Phoebe sat beside me, holding my hand as tears rolled down my cheeks. "You better get home right now!" His voice message made me flinch. I'd never heard him so angry. "My mother is here and you've embarrassed me. Is this how you want to play it?" Then his mother's messages started coming. "This is unacceptable behavior for a wife and mother. You're tearing this family apart. Caleb is devastated. How could you be so selfish?" Phoebe took my phone and turned it off. "You don't need to see this right now," she said firmly. "Gage is outside in his patrol car and I've got the security system on. You're safe here." That first night away from home was the hardest. Every sound made me jump. Finn woke up crying at midnight, and for a moment I panicked. What if his cries bother Phoebe? Was I being a burden? Then I remembered this was what friends were for. This was what safety felt like. The next morning, Officer Chin came by with paperwork. "The restraining order has been served," she said. "Caleb can't come within 500 feet of you or Finn. We've also started the process for an emergency custody order." "He's still texting from different numbers," I admitted, showing her my new messages. "His mother, too. They're saying I'm mentally unstable, that taking Finn away from his father is abuse." Officer Chin's face hardened. "Save everything. Every text, every voicemail, every email. It's all evidence of harassment." Phoebe brought in coffee and breakfast, forcing me to eat even though my stomach was in knots. "Juniper," she said gently, "there's something else we need to talk about. I called your sister in Colorado." My heart skipped. Scarlett, my older sister, had been begging me to visit for months. I'd always made excuses. Caleb said traveling with a newborn was too risky, we couldn't afford it, and his mother would miss Finn too much. "She's flying in tomorrow," Phoebe continued, "and she's brought plane tickets for you and Finn. You need more than just distance, Juniper. You need a fresh start." The thought of leaving everything, my home, my job, my life here was terrifying. But then Finn stirred in his crib, making those little morning baby noises that melted my heart, and I knew I had to break this cycle, not just for me, but for him. "Caleb's mother is telling everyone I kidnapped Finn," I said, my voice shaking. "She's posting on Facebook, calling me unstable, saying I need help." "Let her," Phoebe said firmly. "We have police reports, photographs, witnesses. Your story is the truth, Juniper. Don't let them twist it." Scarlett arrived the next day, looking exactly like the big sister I remembered, strong, determined, and ready to fight anyone who hurt her family. The moment she saw my face, still showing traces of Caleb's handprint, she burst into tears and held me tight. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she whispered. "All those video calls where you looked so tired, all those times you said everything was fine." "I thought I could fix it," I admitted, bouncing Finn gently as he fussed. I thought if I just tried harder, kept the house cleaner, was a better wife? Don't, Scarlett cut me off. This was never about housework. This was about control. Over the next 2 days, we prepared for our departure. Officer Chen helped us file all the necessary paperwork to legally leave the state with Finn. Phoebe and her brother Gage documented everything. Caleb's escalating messages, his mother's social media posts accusing me of being mentally ill, the growing list of flying monkeys they'd recruited to check on me. Caleb's latest tactic was playing the devoted father. Please, his messages read, just let me see my son. You can't keep him from me. I'll do better, I promise. We can get counseling. But then his mother would message right after, You're sick, Juniper. You need help. A good mother wouldn't run away. A good wife wouldn't embarrass her husband like this. The night before our flight, I sat in Phoebe's guest room, sorting through Finn's clothes. Scarlett was helping me pack, choosing what to take and what to leave behind. Look at this, I said, holding up a tiny onesie. Caleb's mother bought this. She said it was to remind me that Finn was a real part of their family. The onesie read, Grandma's perfect little man. Scarlett took it and threw it straight into the donation bag. Finn's going to have new clothes, she said firmly. Clothes without strings attached. That night, I could barely sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Caleb's face twisted in anger, felt the sting of his hand, and heard his mother's cold voice approving of my discipline. But then Finn would make a small sound in his sleep, and I'd remember why I had to be strong. The morning of our flight, Phoebe drove us to the airport, while Gage trailed behind in his patrol car, just in case. We'd gotten word that Caleb had been asking around about our plans, trying to figure out where we were headed. Remember, Officer Chen had said, you're not running away. You're escaping abuse. There's a difference. At the security checkpoint, I had to hand Finn to Scarlett while I walked through the scanner. Those few seconds apart felt like an eternity, my heart pounding in my chest. When I finally held him again, I felt a wave of relief, and together we made our way to our gate. Phoebe hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. You're the strongest person I know, she whispered. And when you're ready to tell your story, I'll be here to back up every word. As our plane ascended, I gazed out the window, watching my city fade beneath the clouds. Finn slept peacefully in my arms, unaware of the new life we were beginning. My thoughts drifted to Caleb, to his mother, and to the life I had thought I was building. Everything okay? Scarlett asked, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. I looked down at Finn, then at my sister, and simply said, No, but it will be. 2 months into our new life in Colorado, I woke up to the sound of Finn's morning babbles instead of anxiety. My tiny apartment was far from perfect. Boxes remained unpacked. Baby toys littered the floor, but it was safe. It was ours. Scarlett had helped me find a job as a remote customer service representative. It wasn't my dream career, but it allowed me to work while Finn napped, and most importantly, it was income Caleb couldn't control. Each paycheck felt like another building block for our independence. Caleb and his mother hadn't stopped trying to reach me, but their attempts had changed. Now, they mostly sent guilt-ridden messages through mutual friends. Caleb misses his son so much. His mother cries every time she sees Finn's photos. They just want to be part of his life. But I had learned to see through their manipulation. My therapist, Dr. Roberts, helped me understand the cycle of abuse I'd been caught in. Your house didn't have to be spotless, she'd told me. No home with a newborn is perfect. They used that to control you. One morning, as I was brewing coffee, my phone buzzed with a text from Phoebe. She'd sent a screenshot of Caleb's mother's latest Facebook post, a long rant about ungrateful wives and stolen grandchildren. Below it, Phoebe had written, "Look how desperate they are. You must be doing something right." I couldn't help but smile. Those posts used to terrify me. Now they just seemed pathetic and desperate. Finn was growing fast, hitting milestones one after the other in our peaceful new home. He laughed for the first time during a picnic at the park with Scarlett. He rolled over on a playmat during a mommy and baby group where I made my first local mom friends. "You're a different person now," Scarlett said one evening as we watched Finn trying to crawl. "You're you again." She was right. The scared, confused new mom who thought she deserved punishment for an imperfect house was fading away. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. Last week, I finally felt ready to tell my story. I started a blog not just about abuse, but about recovery, finding strength, and rebuilding a new life. Other mothers reached out, sharing similar experiences, and together we began forming a community of survivors. Caleb still tries to reach me through legal channels, demanding visitation rights. His mother continues to spread lies about my mental health, but none of that can hurt us anymore. We're too far away, too strong, and too supported. Yesterday, as I was folding laundry at my own pace, Finn pulled himself up to stand for the first time. I watched him wobble, then laugh proudly at his achievement, and in that moment, I realized something. This was what I had been fighting for. Not just safety from abuse, but the chance to raise my son in a home filled with love instead of fear. To anyone reading this who might be where I was afraid to leave, thinking you deserve the criticism, believing you can fix things by trying harder, please know this: you deserve peace. You deserve support. You deserve to live without fear. And to Caleb and his mother, if you ever read this, your power over us is gone. Finn will grow up knowing what real love looks like. He'll learn that strength isn't about control, it's about kindness. And he'll learn this from me, his mother, who was strong enough to walk away. What do you do when the person you love most turns into your biggest threat? How do you escape when your world, your marriage, and your family are built on lies? Juniper's life was once defined by the trust and love she had for her husband, Caleb. But everything changed the moment his abuse, both emotional and physical, came to light. After months of manipulation and control, the tipping point came when Caleb struck her in front of their baby, Finn. Her once perfect life had fallen apart, and it was in that moment she realized she could no longer stay. With Phoebe's help and the support of Officer Gage, Juniper fled to a new life in Colorado, seeking refuge from the torment Caleb and his mother had caused. Juniper's actions show that escaping abuse requires more than just courage. It takes a decision to protect yourself and your children, even when it feels impossible. The bravery to walk away was not just about getting out of an abusive relationship, but about breaking free from the years of control. In her new home, Juniper slowly rebuilt her life, finding strength she never knew she had. It wasn't easy, but each day she grew more confident in her decision. Juniper's story is a powerful testament to resilience. No one deserves to live in fear or under the control of someone else. If you or someone you know is in a similar situation, it's never too late to take back your life. What do you think of Juniper's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments, and remember, you are not alone.
Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. One minute, I was sitting in my cramped office at the school trying to coax a shy teenager into talking about his problems, and the next, my phone buzzed with a call that would change everything. "Riley Harper," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. The kid in front of me was finally opening up, and I didn't want to lose the moment. "Riley, it's Dr. Patel from the hospital. I'm afraid your father's condition has taken a turn for the worse." My heart skipped a beat. My father and I hadn't spoken in years. I thought I had buried that part of my life, but here it was, clawing its way back to the surface. I glanced at the student, who was nervously picking at his nails, and offered a reassuring nod. "I'll be right there," I told the doctor, my voice betraying none of the turmoil inside. On the drive to the hospital, my mind was a mess of memories and regrets. I had left home at 18, determined to forge my own path, away from the shadows of my father's mistakes. Now it seemed those shadows had found me again. Walking into the hospital, I felt like a stranger in my own life. The sterile smell, the hushed voices, it all felt so surreal. I approached the nurse's station, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Excuse me, I'm here for David Harper," I said, my voice cracking slightly. The nurse looked up, her eyes softening with sympathy. "Room 214 down the hall." As I made my way to the room, I noticed a man standing by the door, his back turned to me. He was tall, with an air of quiet strength that seemed oddly familiar. I hesitated, unsure if I should interrupt. "Are you here for someone?" he asked, turning to face me. His eyes were a striking blue, filled with a mix of concern and exhaustion. "Yeah, my father," I replied, trying to read his expression. "David Harper." He nodded, a hint of recognition in his eyes. "I'm Grant Lawson. My father is in the next room." We stood there for a moment, two strangers bound by the shared weight of family burdens. There was something comforting in his presence, like a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. "How is he?" I asked, gesturing towards the room. Grant sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Not great. It's hard seeing him like this." I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to admit. "Yeah, I know the feeling." We exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken fears and hopes that hung between us. It was strange, finding solace in someone I had just met, but there was an ease to it, as if we were old friends reunited by circumstance. As we talked, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, and I found myself laughing at his stories about growing up in a family business. It was a welcome distraction from the heaviness that loomed over us both. But just as quickly as the moment of levity came, reality crashed back in. A nurse emerged from my father's room, her expression grave. "You can see him now," she said softly. I nodded, feeling Grant's gaze on me as I stepped into the room. My father lay there, frail and vulnerable, a shadow of the man I remembered. I swallowed hard, pushing down the emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. "Hey, Dad," I said quietly, taking a seat beside him. His eyes fluttered open, and for a moment I saw a flicker of recognition. "Riley," he murmured, his voice barely audible. We talked in halting sentences, skirting around the past and focusing on the present. There was so much left unsaid, but in that moment it didn't matter. All that mattered was being there, together. As I left the room, I found Grant waiting outside, leaning against the wall with a thoughtful expression. "How was it?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Harder than I thought," I admitted, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on me. He nodded, offering a small, understanding smile. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here." I thanked him, grateful for the unexpected connection. As I drove home, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. My father's condition, Grant's kindness, the unresolved questions that lingered like ghosts. And in the quiet of the night, I wondered what the future held. And if this unexpected encounter was the beginning of something I hadn't dared to imagine. I found myself standing outside the Lawson family's grand old house, a place that exuded both history and expectation. Grant had invited me to dinner, a gesture that felt both welcoming and daunting. As I rang the doorbell, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into a world that was both foreign and familiar in its complexity. The door swung open, and there was Grant, his smile warm and reassuring. "Glad you could make it, Riley," he said, ushering me inside. The house was filled with the comforting aroma of home-cooked food, and I could hear the faint clatter of dishes coming from the kitchen. Grant led me into the living room where his parents were seated. Walter sat in a large armchair, his presence calm yet commanding. Beatrice, on the other hand, was perched on the edge of the sofa, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Mom, Dad, this is Riley," Grant introduced, his voice steady but with an undertone that hinted at the importance of this meeting. Beatrice's gaze swept over me, her smile polite but with an edge that felt like a test. "Riley, it's nice to meet you," she said, her tone friendly enough, but I could sense the undercurrent of skepticism. "Thank you for having me," I replied, hoping my voice conveyed more confidence than I felt. Dinner was a delicate dance of conversation, each topic a potential minefield. Beatrice asked about my work, her questions probing yet seemingly innocuous. I answered as best as I could, trying to maintain a balance between honesty and diplomacy. "So, Riley," Beatrice began, her fork pausing midair, "what brings you back to town?" I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "My father's health mostly," I said, keeping my tone light. "It's been a while since I've been home." Walter nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Family has a way of pulling us back, doesn't it? There was a moment of silence, the weight of unspoken truths hanging in the air. I could feel Beatrice's eyes on me, as if trying to decipher my intentions. It was clear that she was fiercely protective of her family, and I was an unknown element in their tightly knit circle. After dinner, as Grant and I helped clear the table, I overheard Beatrice speaking softly to Walter in the next room. Their words were muffled, but I caught snippets that made my stomach clench. Concerned about Grant's future. Not sure if she fits into this. I felt a pang of doubt, the seeds of insecurity taking root. Was I really an outsider here? Did I belong in Grant's life, or was I just a temporary distraction? Grant must have noticed my change in demeanor because he touched my arm gently. "You okay?" I forced a smile, not wanting to burden him with my worries. "Yeah, just a lot to take in." He nodded, offering a reassuring squeeze. "I know my family can be intense, but they'll come around." I wanted to believe him, but Beatrice's words lingered in my mind, casting a shadow over our budding connection. As the evening wound down, I found myself alone with Beatrice in the living room. She was arranging flowers in a vase, her movements precise and controlled. "Riley," she said, not looking up, "I hope you understand that we're just protective of Grant. He's been through a lot with the business and all." I nodded, trying to convey understanding. "I get it. Family is important." She finally met my gaze, her eyes searching mine. "It's not easy balancing personal desires with family obligations. I just hope you're prepared for what that entails." Her words were layered with meaning, a warning wrapped in civility. I smiled politely, but inside I was wrestling with the implications of her statement. As I left the Lawsons' house that night, I felt a mix of emotions. The evening had been both enlightening and unsettling, revealing the complexities of a family bound by duty and expectation. Grant was caught in the middle, torn between his own desires and the weight of his family's legacy. And as for me, I was left grappling with my own place in this tangled web. Beatrice's subtle disapproval had planted seeds of doubt, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was setting myself up for heartache. The drive home was quiet, the road stretching out before me like a path of uncertainty. I knew I had to tread carefully to find my footing in this new chapter of my life. But as I pulled into my driveway, one question lingered in my mind. Was I ready for the challenges that lay ahead? Or was I destined to repeat the mistakes of the past? With that thought, I knew the journey was far from over. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake off. Conversation with Beatrice had left me feeling like I was standing on shaky ground, and I hated that feeling. I decided to visit the school early, hoping the routine would help clear my head. As I walked through the halls, I noticed a group of students huddled together, whispering animatedly. It was a scene I was used to, but today their excitement felt contagious. I paused, watching them for a moment before heading to my office. I was just settling in when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Grant. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep my distance until I could sort out my own feelings. But another part of me, the part that was drawn to Grant despite everything, urged me to respond. Sure. "After work?" I texted back, feeling a flutter of nerves. The day dragged on, and by the time I left the school, I was both anxious and eager to see him. We met at a small cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and a cozy atmosphere. Grant was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking lost in thought. "Hey," I greeted, sliding into the seat opposite him. "Hey," he replied, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. We ordered coffee, and for a few moments we sat in silence, the air between us heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Grant spoke, his voice low and earnest. "Riley, there's something I need to tell you." I nodded, bracing myself for what was to come. "Our family business. It's not doing well," he admitted, his gaze fixed on his cup. "We've been struggling for a while now." I didn't want to burden you with it, but I realized that was a mistake. The admission hit me like a punch to the gut. I had suspected something was off, but hearing it confirmed was a different matter entirely. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. Grant sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want you to see this side of things, to see me as a failure." His vulnerability was palpable, and it tugged at something deep inside me. But there was also a part of me that felt betrayed, kept in the dark about something so significant. "I wish you had trusted me enough to share this," I said softly, my heart aching for him. "I know," he replied, meeting my gaze with a sincerity that was hard to ignore. "I'm sorry, Riley. I should have been honest from the start." As we talked, I could see the weight he carried, the pressure of trying to uphold his family's legacy while battling his own doubts. It was a struggle I understood all too well, and it made me want to help, even as I wrestled with my own reservations. But before we could delve deeper into the conversation, Grant's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting from concern to alarm. "I need to take this," he said, standing up and stepping outside. I watched him go, my mind racing with questions and uncertainties. Cafe suddenly felt too small, too stifling, and I needed air. I followed him outside, catching snippets of his conversation. "I'll be there soon." "No, don't do anything until I arrive." His voice was tense, and I could see the strain etched into his features. As he hung up, he turned to me, his expression apologetic. "I'm sorry, Riley. I have to go. It's urgent. Is everything okay?" I asked, concern lacing my voice. "Just some issues at the cleaners," he replied, his tone evasive. "I'll explain later, I promise." I nodded, watching as he hurried away, a sense of foreboding settling over me. There was more going on than he was letting on, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was only the beginning of a much larger storm. As I drove home, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Grant's revelation had opened a Pandora's box of questions, and I was left grappling with the implications. Could I really be part of his life, knowing the challenges he faced? And more importantly, could I trust him to be honest with me moving forward? The road ahead was uncertain, and with each passing moment I felt the pull of conflicting emotions, hope, doubt, and an unyielding desire to uncover the truth. Whatever lay ahead, I knew one thing for sure. I was in deeper than I had ever intended, and there was no turning back now. The next few days felt like a whirlwind, with Grant and I caught in the eye of the storm. His revelation about the family business had raised more questions than answers, and I was left grappling with how to help without losing myself in the process. One evening, Grant called, his voice tinged with urgency. "I've been thinking about a plan," he said. "Something that could save Lawson's cleaners, but I need your help." I hesitated, the weight of his words settling around me. "What kind of help?" "Your perspective," he replied, his tone almost pleading. "You're good with people, Riley. You know how to connect, how to see things differently. I need that." His request was both flattering and daunting. Part of me wanted to dive in, to prove myself not just to him but to his family. But another part of me, the part that remembered Beatrice's disapproval and the uncertainty of our future, urged caution. "I'll think about it," I said finally, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. As I hung up, I realized I needed advice. Called Sadie, my rock and sounding board through all of life's twists and turns. We met at our favorite spot by the river, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the water. "Grant wants me to help with the business," I said, skipping a stone across the surface. "I'm not sure what to do." Sadie watched the ripples, her expression thoughtful. "Do you want to help?" "Yes and no," I admitted, frustration creeping into my voice. "I care about him, but I don't want to lose myself in his problems." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "You have to decide what's more important, Riley. Your dreams or his. Maybe there's a way to do both, but you need to figure out where you stand." Her words resonated with me, a reminder that I had my own path to follow. I thanked her, feeling a little more grounded, even as uncertainty loomed. The next day, I went to see Grant, ready to discuss his plan. But as I arrived at Lawson's Cleaners, I noticed something unusual. The shop was bustling, but there was an air of tension, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Inside, I found Grant in deep conversation with Walter. Their voices were low, but there was an intensity to their exchange that made me pause at the door. "We can't keep going like this," Walter said, his voice firm. "We need to make changes, even if it means letting go of the past." Grant's reply was muffled, but I caught the frustration in his tone. "I know, but it's not just about the business. It's about family, about everything we've built." Their words were like pieces of a puzzle, hinting at deeper issues within the family. I stepped back, not wanting to intrude, but Grant spotted me and waved me over. "Riley," he greeted, a mix of relief and tension in his eyes. "We were just discussing the future of the Cleaners." I nodded, sensing the gravity of the situation. "Is there anything I can do?" Walter looked at me, his expression inscrutable. "Grant seems to think you have some good ideas. I'd like to hear them." The unexpected endorsement caught me off guard, but it also sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe there was a way to help, to bridge the gap between their past and future. As we talked, I offered suggestions, drawing from my experience with people and community outreach. Walter listened intently, his demeanor softening as he saw the potential in my ideas. But just as we were finding common ground, Beatrice entered the room, her presence like a cold wind. "What's going on here?" she asked, her gaze flicking between us. "We're discussing some new strategies," Grant explained, trying to keep his tone light. Beatrice's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of suspicion in her voice. "And you think that's wise, involving outsiders in family business?" Her words stung, a reminder of the barriers I faced. But before I could respond, Walter spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "Riley's ideas could help us, Beatrice. We need to be open to change." The exchange shifted the dynamics, revealing cracks in the family's united front. It was clear that Beatrice's hold on the family was slipping, her fear of losing control manifesting in her resistance to change. As I left Lawson's Cleaners that day, I felt a mix of emotions. Path ahead was fraught with challenges, but there was also potential for growth, for healing. And as I walked away, I realized that my journey was not just about helping Grant, but about finding my own place in this tangled web of love, loyalty, and legacy. The Lawson family's annual charity gala was a big deal in town, a night where everyone dressed to the nines and pretended life was perfect. I had been apprehensive about attending, but Grant insisted it was important for us to present a united front, especially with the business on shaky ground. As I stepped into the grand ballroom, I was immediately struck by the opulence of it all. Crystal chandeliers, elegant floral arrangements, and a sea of people in glittering attire. Grant was by my side, his hand reassuringly on my back, but I could feel the tension radiating off him. "Thanks for coming," he murmured, his smile a little forced. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. We mingled, exchanging pleasantries with the town's elite, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Beatrice was nearby, her gaze like a hawk surveying its territory. Her disapproval was palpable, and I knew she was waiting for any misstep. As the evening wore on, I found myself cornered by Beatrice near the buffet table. Her smile was tight, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Riley, I'm glad you could join us tonight." "Thank you for having me," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. She leaned in slightly, her eyes narrowing. "You know, these events are crucial for our family's image. It's important to maintain a certain standard." I nodded, understanding the subtext. "I'm aware. I'll do my best." Her smile didn't waver, but her words were sharp. "I hope so. Grant has a lot on his plate, and distractions can be costly." The implication was clear, and it stung. I excused myself, needing air, and found a quiet corner where I could breathe. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I struggled to keep my emotions in check. Grant found me a few minutes later, concern etched on his face. "Riley, are you okay?" I forced a smile, trying to brush it off. "Just needed a moment." Your mother's. Intense, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know. She means well, but she doesn't always see how her words affect others. I nodded, appreciating his support but feeling the weight of his family's expectations pressing down on me. Before I could respond, we were interrupted by Walter, who looked unusually serious. Grant, we need to talk, he said, his voice low. Grant glanced at me apologetically. I'll be right back. As he walked away, I felt a pang of isolation, standing alone amidst the crowd. I wandered towards the balcony, hoping the cool night air would clear my head. Sighed, the city lights twinkled below, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I leaned against the railing, trying to sort through my thoughts. But my moment of solitude was short-lived. Quite the view, isn't it? I turned to see Sadie, her presence a welcome surprise. What are you doing here? She grinned, holding up her camera. Covering the event. Thought I'd find you here, hiding from the madness. I laughed, the tension easing slightly. Guilty as charged. We stood together, the silence comfortable. Finally, Sadie broke it, her voice gentle. You don't have to prove anything to them, you know. I know, I replied, though the conviction in my voice was lacking. But it's hard not to feel like I'm constantly being tested. Sadie nodded, her gaze steady. Just remember, you're more than whatever they think of you. Don't lose sight of that. Her words resonated, a reminder of who I was outside of this tangled mess. But before I could respond, the sound of raised voices drifted from inside. Grant and Walter were arguing, their voices carrying through the open doors. I caught snippets of the conversation, enough to piece together the gist. Can't keep pretending everything's fine. We need to be honest, Grant. I'm trying, but it's not just about us. It's about the future. Tension was thick, the air charged with unresolved issues. I felt a pang of sympathy for Grant, caught between his family's legacy and his own desires. As the argument subsided, Grant returned to the balcony, his expression strained. Sorry about that, he said, his voice weary. I touched his arm, offering silent support. It's okay. Are you all right? He nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. I just wish things were simpler. We stood there, side by side, the night stretching out before us. The gala continued inside, a world of glitz and glamour that felt increasingly distant from the reality we faced. And as I looked at Grant, I realized that the path forward was anything but clear. We were standing on the edge of something vast and uncertain, and I knew that whatever happened next would test us both in ways we hadn't yet imagined. Returning to my life after the gala felt like stepping into a different world. I had thrown myself back into work, trying to find solace in the familiar routines of school counseling. Each day brought new challenges with students, and while it was rewarding, the shadow of everything with Grant loomed large. One afternoon, as I was leaving the school, my phone rang. It was Grant. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen before I answered. Hey, I said, trying to sound upbeat. Riley, I need to see you, Grant said, his voice tense and urgent. Is everything okay? I asked, concern threading through my words. Not really. Can we meet at the park? I agreed, my heart heavy with anticipation. When I arrived, Grant was already there, pacing by the lake. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by a restless energy. Grant, what's going on? I asked, approaching him. He stopped, his eyes meeting mine with a mix of desperation and frustration. The business is worse off than I thought. We might have to shut down. The words hung between us, heavy and suffocating. I searched his face, hoping for some sign that he was exaggerating, but his expression was grim. Is there anything we can do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. I've tried everything, Riley. Loans, investors, even selling off some assets. Nothing's worked. I reached out, squeezing his arm. We'll figure something out. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. The situation felt insurmountable, a mountain too steep to climb. And as if sensing my uncertainty, Grant's expression hardened. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this," he said, stepping back slightly. "Maybe it would have been better if we hadn't." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice firmer than I felt. "We're in this together." He nodded, but I could see the internal battle raging within him. He was torn between his family's legacy and the desire to protect me from the fallout. And in that moment, I realized how deeply intertwined our lives had become. As we stood there, the wind whispering through the trees, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Sadie. "Call me when you can. Urgent asterisk." I showed Grant the message, and he nodded. "Go ahead. I'll be here." I stepped away, dialing Sadie's number. Her voice was breathless, almost frantic. "Riley, you won't believe this. I was going through some old photos from the gala, and I found something strange." "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "There's a picture of Beatrice talking to someone I didn't recognize. I did some digging, and it turns out he's a competitor. They've been meeting secretly." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Beatrice, the staunch protector of her family's legacy, was colluding with the enemy? Seemed impossible, yet Sadie's words rang true. "Are you sure?" I asked, my mind racing. "Positive. I've got the photos to prove it," Sadie replied. I thanked her, my mind a whirl of confusion and betrayal. Beatrice was working against her own family. What did that mean for Grant and the business? I returned to Grant, my heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice urgent. He looked up, concern etched on his features. "What is it?" I hesitated, unsure how to break the news. "Sadie found something. Your mother's been meeting with a competitor." His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "That can't be right. She'd never." "I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't seen the evidence," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Grant's face fell, a mix of anger and hurt clouding his features. "Why would she do this?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of the revelation pressing down on us both. The betrayal was a knife in the back, twisting with every realization. Beatrice, who had always been so protective of the family's legacy, was the one undermining it. And as I stood there with Grant, I felt the ground shift beneath us, the foundation of everything we'd believed crumbling away. We were at a crossroads, faced with impossible choices and no clear path forward. The future felt bleak, and for the first time I wondered if we could survive the storm. But even in the darkness, I knew one thing. We had to confront the truth, no matter how painful, and find a way to rebuild from the ashes. The weight of the revelation about Beatrice hung over us like a storm cloud. Grant and I knew we had to confront her, but the prospect was daunting. The Lawson family had always been a fortress, and breaching its walls felt impossible. Yet we couldn't ignore what we'd discovered. We decided to meet at the Lawson home, a place that had become both familiar and fraught with tension. As we approached, I could feel Grant's apprehension, though he tried to mask it with a determined expression. Inside, the house was quiet, the usual bustle absent. Walter was in the living room, his demeanor calm but watchful. Beatrice was in the kitchen, her back to us as she prepared dinner. "Mom, we need to talk," Grant said, his voice steady but firm. Beatrice turned, her expression shifting from surprise to guardedness. "What is it, Grant?" I stood beside him, my presence a silent support. "We know about the meetings with the competitor," Grant continued, his words hanging in the air like a challenge. Beatrice's eyes flickered with something, guilt perhaps, or defiance. "I did what I thought was necessary," she replied, her tone clipped. "Necessary?" Grant echoed, disbelief coloring his voice. "You were undermining everything we've worked for." Walter stepped in, his voice a calming force. "Beatrice, why didn't you tell us?" She sighed, the weight of her actions settling over her. "I was trying to protect the family. I thought if I could negotiate a merger, we could save the business." The room fell silent, the implications of her words sinking in. A merger? It was a solution, but one that came at a cost. the loss of the family's independence, their legacy. Grant's jaw tightened, his emotions warring beneath the surface. You should have talked to us, trusted us. I was afraid, Beatrice admitted, her voice softer now. Afraid of losing everything, of seeing our family fall apart. Her vulnerability was unexpected, a crack in her otherwise impenetrable facade. It was clear she believed she was acting in the family's best interest, but her secrecy had sown distrust. I watched Grant, his internal struggle playing out in the clench of his fists, the tension in his stance. He was caught between anger and understanding, the desire to protect his family clashing with the betrayal he felt. Mom, he said finally, his voice steady but filled with emotion, we need to face this together as a family. That's the only way we'll get through it. Beatrice nodded, her eyes softening. I'm sorry, Grant. I should have trusted you more. The apology was a start, a tentative step towards healing. But as we stood there, the enormity of the situation loomed large. The business was still in jeopardy, and the path forward was uncertain. Walter, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Perhaps there's another way, he suggested, his tone thoughtful. We turned to him, curiosity piqued. What do you mean? I asked. He gestured towards a stack of old documents on the coffee table. I've been going through some of the old records. There's potential for a new direction, one that doesn't involve selling out. His words sparked a glimmer of hope, a possibility we hadn't considered. As we pored over the documents, a plan began to take shape, one that involved modernizing the business, tapping into new markets, and leveraging the community connections we'd built. Tension in the room eased slightly, replaced by a sense of purpose. We were no longer at odds, but united in a common goal. It was a fragile truce, but it was enough to light the way forward. As the evening wore on, I found myself alone with Grant on the porch, the cool night air a welcome respite from the intensity inside. Thank you, he said, his voice sincere, for standing by me even when things were at their worst. I smiled, the warmth of his gratitude washing over me. We're in this together, remember? He nodded, his expression softening. I know, and I'm grateful for it. Path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time it felt like we were moving in the right direction. We had faced the storm and come out the other side, a little battered but stronger for it. And as I stood there with Grant, I realized that the journey wasn't just about saving the business or navigating family dynamics. It was about finding our place in the world, about understanding what truly mattered. In that moment, I knew we were on the right track, ready to face whatever came next, together. The weeks following our confrontation with Beatrice were a whirlwind of activity and introspection. We had set a new course for Lawson's Cleaners, one that embraced innovation while honoring the family's legacy. It was a delicate balance, but with Walter's guidance and Grant's determination, we began to see progress. One afternoon, as I was reviewing some proposals at the shop, Beatrice approached me. Her demeanor was softer, her usual guardedness replaced by a tentative openness. Riley, she began, her voice steady but with an undertone of vulnerability, I owe you an apology. I looked up, surprised by the admission. You don't have to. No, I do, she insisted, meeting my gaze. I was wrong to doubt you, to see you as an outsider. You've shown more loyalty and strength than I gave you credit for. Her words were unexpected but welcome, a step towards healing the rift that had divided us. Thank you, Beatrice, I replied, my voice warm. I appreciate that. She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. We're lucky to have you as part of this family. The acknowledgement felt like a turning point, a moment of acceptance that had once seemed impossible. It was a reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal with time and understanding. As the day wore on, I found myself reflecting on my own journey. I had come to this town seeking closure, but in the process I had found something much more, a sense of belonging, a purpose that extended beyond my own ambitions. That evening, Grant and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. It was a moment of calm amidst the chaos, a chance to savor the progress we'd made. Hard to believe how far we've come, Grant mused, his gaze on the horizon. I nodded, feeling the truth of his words. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. He turned to me, his expression earnest. I couldn't have done it without you, Riley. There was a sincerity in his voice that touched me deeply. We did it together, I replied, reaching for his hand. We sat in comfortable silence, the warmth of his presence a balm to my soul. It was a moment of peace, a chance to reflect on the journey we'd undertaken and the challenges we'd overcome. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Grant reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I found this while going through some of my father's old things, he said, handing it to me. I opened it, finding a letter addressed to me in my father's familiar handwriting. My heart skipped a beat as I began to read, the words a poignant reminder of the past. Dear Riley, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I want you to know how proud I am of you. You've always followed your heart, even when it led you away from home. My hope for you is that you find happiness wherever that may be. Love, Dad. The letter was a revelation, a final gift from my father that offered closure and understanding. It was a reminder of the love that had always been there, even when it was unspoken. As I folded the letter, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. My journey had been one of discovery, of learning to balance my own desires with the needs of those I cared about. It was a lesson in forgiveness, in finding strength in vulnerability. Grant squeezed my hand, his touch grounding me in the present. What did it say? I smiled, the warmth of my father's words still resonating within me. That I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Path ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that with Grant by my side, I could face whatever came next. We had weathered the storm, and in doing so, we had forged a bond that was unbreakable. As we sat together under the stars, I realized that the journey was never really about revenge or justice. It was about finding my place in the world, about understanding that true strength came from love and connection. And in that moment, I knew we had found our way home.
The letter arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between a cable bill and a perfume catalog. No return address, just my name written in precise, angular handwriting that made my stomach twist before I even opened it. I should have known right then that it would change everything. My name is Lila, and until that moment, I thought I had finally found my place in the Sinclair family. Sure, my mother-in-law Augusta still treated our weekly dinners like military operations, and my husband Grant still couldn't say no to her. But I was making it work. Or at least that's what I told myself. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of cream-colored paper, expensive stuff. The kind Augusta uses for her charity gala invitations. The message was short. Your mother-in-law isn't who you think she is. Check the family business accounts from 2019. Follow the money. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking more with each pass. The paper smelled faintly of Chanel No. 5, Augusta's signature scent. The same one she'd given me a bottle of last Christmas, with that little smile that said, "Now you can smell like a real Sinclair." I called Grant at his office, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, do you have access to the old business accounts? Why would you need those?" He sounded distracted, probably buried in work as usual. Just curious about something. For the family history project Augusta asked me to help with, the lie came easily, surprising me. You know Mom handles all that stuff. Maybe ask her? Of course. Everything went through Augusta. Even after 10 years of marriage, I still needed her permission to breathe the Sinclair air. Right, silly me, I said, already knowing I wouldn't ask her. See you at dinner? About that? Grant hesitated. Mom called. She wants us all over tonight. Says she has something important to discuss. My stomach dropped. Tonight? But it's not our usual night. You know how she gets. Better not to argue. I hung up and stared at the letter again. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Augusta never did anything without calculation, like a chess player always thinking 10 moves ahead. That evening, I pulled into the circular driveway of the Sinclair mansion, the letter burning a hole in my purse. Grant's car was already there, along with his father Gerald's Mercedes and, surprisingly, his brother Everett's Range Rover. Everett hardly ever came to family dinners anymore, not since Augusta had driven his wife Marissa away 2 years ago. The front door opened before I could ring the bell. Augusta stood there in her perfectly tailored navy dress, pearl necklace gleaming. "Lila, darling. You're late." "Traffic," I said, though I was actually right on time. She just liked to remind me that her time was more valuable than mine. "Well, come in. We have matters to discuss." She turned and glided toward the dining room, leaving me to follow in her wake like always. The others were already seated, Grant looking uncomfortable, Gerald studying his water glass, and Everett radiating tension from the far end of the table. The air felt thick with unspoken words. Augusta took her place at the head of the table, smoothing her napkin across her lap. "Now that we're all here, I have an announcement." She paused, her eyes finding mine with unsettling precision. "There have been some concerning developments with the family business. Someone has been making inquiries about our financial records." My heart stopped. How could she know about the letter already? I hadn't told anyone. "I intend to get to the bottom of this," she continued, her voice silk over steel. "And I expect everyone's full cooperation in protecting our family's interests." As the others murmured their agreement, I felt the weight of Augusta's gaze. In that moment, I knew 2 things with absolute certainty. Someone was trying to expose Augusta's secrets, and she was ready to destroy anyone who helped them, even family. The game was on, whether I was ready or not. After Augusta's announcement, dinner became an exercise in calculated silence. The only sounds were silver against china and the tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. I watched as Gerald methodically cut his steak into precise squares, never once looking up at his wife. "The salmon is excellent," I said, trying to break the tension. "Is this a new recipe?" Augusta dabbed her lips with her napkin. "Our new chef. The last one couldn't follow simple instructions." Her eyes flickered to me. Some people never learn their place in an established household. Everett's fork clattered against his plate. "Really, Mother? We're doing this again." "I'm sure I don't know what you mean, darling." Augusta's voice was honey-sweet, but her knuckles were white around her wine glass. I glanced at Grant, hoping for support, but he was studying his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. Typical. 10 years of marriage, and he still couldn't stand up to her. "Actually," I said, setting down my fork, "I'd love to learn more about the family business. Maybe I could help with some of the administrative work." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Augusta's smile never wavered, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "Oh, Lila," she said, "you have your little perfume shop to worry about. We wouldn't want to overwhelm you with matters beyond your expertise." Before I could respond, Gerald cleared his throat. "The business is doing fine, Lila. No need to concern yourself." His voice was quiet, but there was something in his tone, a warning. "Besides," Augusta continued, "we're here to discuss the charity gala next month. I expect everyone to attend." She looked pointedly at Everett. "Everyone." "Can't," Everett said. "I have plans." "Cancel them." Augusta's tone left no room for argument. "The Sinclair family presents a united front. Isn't that right, Grant?" Grant finally looked up. "Of course, Mother." I felt sick. The letter in my purse seemed to burn against my leg. As Augusta launched into details about table arrangements and guest lists, I excused myself to use the bathroom. In the hallway, Everett caught up with me. "Hey, you okay?" "Fine," I lied. "Just needed some air." He glanced back toward the dining room. "Listen, be careful asking about the business." "Mom's protective." "Why? What's she hiding?" "Let's just say Marissa asked similar questions before." He trailed off, jaw tightening. "Just watch yourself." Back at the table, Augusta was showing Gerald something on her phone. The caterer sent the most wonderful proposals, though I noticed Marissa's new company submitted a bid. She deleted something with a decisive tap. Shame about their reputation for unreliability. I saw Everett's hands clench under the table. So that's how Augusta operated. Death by 1,000 cuts, each one precisely aimed. "Actually," I said, surprising myself, "I've heard great things about Marissa's work. Maybe we should consider." "I've made my decision." Augusta's tone was final. Now, about the seating arrangements. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of passive-aggressive comments and loaded silences. As we prepared to leave, Augusta pulled me aside. "Lila, dear, a word?" She led me into her study, closing the door. "I hope you understand that family loyalty is everything to us Sinclairs." "Of course." "Good." She adjusted a photo on her desk, the whole family at Christmas, everyone smiling like they meant it. It would be tragic if anything threatened that harmony. Especially now, with you and Grant trying for a baby. My blood ran cold. We hadn't told anyone about that yet. "How did you?" "I make it my business to know everything that affects this family." She patted my cheek. "Sleep well, dear." I left the study feeling like I'd just been threatened in a language I was only beginning to understand. But as I drove home, the letter burning a hole in my purse, I made a decision. If Augusta wanted to play games, fine. But I wasn't going to be another pawn on her board. I needed to talk to Marissa. Finding Marissa wasn't hard. What was hard was explaining to Grant why I needed to leave work early to meet a friend for coffee. He didn't ask who. He never did, but his silence spoke volumes. The cafe was tucked away in a part of town the Sinclairs would never visit. Marissa sat at a corner table, looking nothing like the polished society wife I remembered from old family photos. Her hair was shorter, her clothes more relaxed. She looked happier. "I almost didn't come," she said as I sat down. "But Everett said it was important. Thank you for meeting me." I pulled out the letter, now creased from constant handling. "I need to understand what happened to you." Marissa read it, her face growing tight. "Where did you get this?" "It just showed up. But after last night's dinner, I think." "Let me guess," she interrupted. "Augusta's starting to show her teeth?" I nodded, remembering the study conversation. She knows things she shouldn't. About me and Grant trying for a baby. Of course she does. Marissa's laugh was bitter. She probably has the house bugged. Wouldn't put it past her. A server brought our coffees. I waited until he left before asking, "What really happened between you and Everett?" "I found something in the company books." "Discrepancies." She stirred her coffee endlessly. Large amounts of money moving through shell companies. When I asked questions, she shrugged. Suddenly there were rumors about me. Affairs, gambling debts. Augusta's specialty, death by reputation. My hand shook as I reached for my cup. And Everett? Augusta gave him a choice. Stand by his troubled wife or protect the family name. Her voice cracked slightly. He chose wrong. Took him 2 years to realize it. "I need proof," I said. "Something concrete." Marissa pulled out her phone, typed something. "Check your email." It's everything I managed to save before they locked me out. "But Lila," her eyes met mine. "Be careful. Augusta doesn't just destroy careers. She destroys families." Back at home, I waited until Grant left for his evening run before logging into his laptop. His password was still our wedding date, something Augusta would hate. The files Marissa sent were complex, but a pattern emerged. Money disappearing from company accounts, reappearing in offshore holdings. All authorized by Augusta. I was so absorbed I didn't hear the front door. "What are you doing?" I jumped. Grant stood in the doorway, still in his running clothes, face unreadable. "I can explain. Are those company files?" He moved closer, saw Marissa's email. "You met with Marissa?" "Behind my back?" "Someone had to ask questions," I said, standing. "Your mother is stealing from the company, Grant. These documents prove it. Those documents are confidential." His voice was cold, distant. "And Marissa is bitter about her divorce. You can't trust her. Can we trust your mother?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father's it hurt. "You don't understand. Family is everything to her." "Family?" I laughed. "She's destroying this family. Ask Everett. Ask your father why he can barely look at her anymore." "Stop." His hands clenched. "Just stop. Delete those files. Forget about this." "Or what? She'll destroy me like she destroyed Marissa?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Grant spoke. "I need some air." He grabbed his keys and left without looking back. I sat there, staring at the screen, until my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check the third-floor storage room at the office. Gee. Gerald. The quiet one. The watcher. I looked at the front door Grant had slammed, then back at the phone. I had a choice to make: stay safe in my marriage's comfortable lies, or dig deeper and risk everything. I grabbed my car keys. Sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. The office building would be empty this late. And I still had the key card Grant had given me last Christmas, another thing Augusta didn't know about. At least, I hoped she didn't. The third-floor storage room smelled like old paper and secrets. My hands trembled as I used Grant's keycard, half expecting alarms to blare. Instead, only silence greeted me as I slipped inside. Filing cabinets lined the walls, their labels faded with age. I pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight, and that's when I saw it, a manila envelope sitting on top of the nearest cabinet, as if someone had left it there just for me. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Augusta at various meetings, shaking hands with men I didn't recognize. Dates stamped in the corners, 2019, just like the letter had mentioned. But it was the last photo that made my blood run cold, Augusta standing in what looked like a hotel lobby with Gerald's brother, Thomas. The same Thomas who had supposedly died in a boating accident that year. My phone buzzed, making me jump. A text from Grant. "Where are you?" I didn't reply. Instead, I took pictures of everything with shaking hands. As I reached to put the envelope back, I knocked something off the cabinet. A small recorder hit the floor, its back popping open. The voice that played was Gerald's. "Can't keep covering for you, Augusta. Thomas knows about the money. He's threatening to go to the board." Augusta's reply was ice cold. "Handle it. Whatever it takes." I didn't spend 30 years building this family to have your idiot brother destroy everything. The recording ended. My mind raced. Thomas hadn't died in an accident. He'd been silenced. And Gerald. Gerald knew. The lights suddenly flickered on. I spun around to find Grant in the doorway, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. "I followed you," he said quietly. "What are you doing here?" "Listen to this." I held out the recorder. "Your mother." "Stop." He held up a hand. "Just stop. Do you have any idea what you're doing? What this could do to our family?" "Family?" I laughed, the sound sharp and foreign. "Your Uncle Thomas was family. Did you know about him too?" Grant's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I showed him the photo. His hands shook as he took it. "This is impossible," he whispered. "He died. We had a funeral. Your mother lied. She's been lying about everything." I touched his arm. "Grant, please. Help me understand what's happening." He stared at the photo for a long moment. When he looked up, his eyes were different, harder, older somehow. "We need to go," he said. "Now." "But the evidence." "Leave it. Please, Lila. Trust me." We drove home in silence, the weight of unspoken words filling the car. As we pulled into our driveway, Grant finally spoke. "Mom called while I was looking for you. She's coming over tomorrow morning. Says she wants to discuss our future in the family business." My stomach dropped. "She knows." "Probably." He turned off the engine but didn't move. "Whatever you found tonight, we can't use it. The cost would be too high. Higher than letting her get away with what she did to Thomas?" Grant's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "You don't understand what she's capable of." "Then help me understand," I pleaded. "Because right now, I'm watching my husband choose his mother's lies over the truth, and I don't know how to live with that." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The distance between us felt infinite. "I need time to think," he said finally. I got out of the car, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "Time won't change what's true, Grant. And tomorrow morning, your mother is going to walk through our door expecting me to choose between my marriage and my conscience." I looked back at him, still sitting in the dark car. "I just hope I'm not the only one who has to make that choice." I went inside alone, leaving him with his silence and his mother's secrets. Tomorrow would bring either truth or destruction. Maybe both. But tonight, I had evidence of murder in my phone and a husband who couldn't decide if he was my ally or my enemy. Sleep wasn't going to come easily. Augusta arrived at 8 sharp the next morning, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. Grant had spent the night in the guest room, and the silence between us hung like smoke in the air. "Darling," Augusta breezed past me, not waiting for an invitation. Gerald sends his regrets. He's feeling under the weather. Her eyes flickered around our living room, lingering on the family photos. "Where's Grant?" On cue, he emerged from upstairs, looking like he hadn't slept. "Mother." "Wonderful. Shall we discuss your future?" She settled onto our couch like it was her throne. The doorbell rang again. Augusta's smile tightened as Everett walked in. "Sorry I'm late," he said, though I hadn't known he was coming. "Traffic." Augusta's fingers drummed against her purse. "I wasn't aware this was a family meeting." "Oh!" Everett sat beside me. "Funny, since we're discussing family business." Before Augusta could respond, another figure appeared in our doorway. "Marissa." My heart stopped. "What is she doing here?" Augusta's voice could have frozen hell. "I invited her," Everett said. "Since we're talking about the future of the company, I thought we should include everyone who knows its secrets, including Uncle Thomas's." The temperature in the room plummeted. Grant stepped forward. "Everett, don't." "Don't what?" Marissa interrupted. "Don't mention how your mother orchestrated Thomas's disappearance? Or how she's been embezzling money through shell companies for years." Augusta laughed, but something cracked in her perfect facade. "These accusations are ridiculous." "Grant, surely you don't believe." "Show them," I said quietly, pulling out my phone. "Show them the photos, Grant. Tell them what we found." Grant stood frozen between his mother and me, the weight of 30 years of loyalty crushing him. "Grant," Augusta's voice turned soft, dangerous. "Remember who you are. What this family means." "What this family means?" Everett stood. "This family means lies, manipulation, and murder. Dad knows it too. Why do you think he's really not here today?" Augusta's hand flew to her throat. "Gerald would never." "He left the evidence," I said. "In the storage room. He wanted us to find it." "You ungrateful little—" Augusta started toward me, but Marissa stepped between us. "I've already sent copies to the board," Marissa said. "And the police." "It's over, Augusta." The silence that followed was deafening. Augusta's perfect mask crumbled, revealing something desperate and dangerous underneath. "Grant," she whispered. "Tell them they're wrong. Tell them what a good mother I've been." Grant looked at me, then at his mother. 10 years of marriage against a lifetime of manipulation. "I saw the photos," he said finally. "I heard the recording. Uncle Thomas. Everything I did was for this family." Augusta's voice rose. "Thomas would have destroyed us. Just like she's destroying us now." She pointed at me, hands shaking. "I won't let you tear apart what I've built." She reached into her purse. The metal of the small revolver caught the morning light. "Mother." Grant moved toward her, but she stepped back. "Nobody moves," she said. Her hand was steady now, the gun aimed at my chest. "Lila, darling, you're going to delete those photos. Then you're going to tell the board it was all a mistake. A misunderstanding." "Augusta." Everett's voice was careful, measured. "Think about what you're doing." "I have thought about it. For 30 years, I've thought about nothing but protecting this family." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "And I won't stop now." I met her eyes, saw the fear behind the fury. "You're right," I said softly. "Family is everything. That's why Gerald left the evidence. Because sometimes protecting your family means saving them from themselves." Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Augusta's hand trembled. "Mother," Grant said, "please." The gun wavered. In that moment, I saw our futures balancing on a knife's edge, justice or tragedy, truth or lies, family or destruction. The choice wasn't mine anymore. It was Augusta's. And she was finally out of moves. The police arrived just as Augusta pulled the trigger. The gun clicked empty. Gerald had thought of everything, even removing the bullets. As they led her away in handcuffs, she didn't scream or fight. She just smiled at me, that same perfect society smile she'd worn at every family dinner. "You'll never be one of us," she said softly as they escorted her past. "Remember that." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of police statements and reporters camping outside our house. Grant hadn't said more than 2 words to me since they took his mother away. He just sat in his study, staring at old family photos like they might reveal some hidden truth. I found him there late that night, an empty whiskey glass in his hand. "The board called," he said without looking up. "They're suspending everyone involved pending investigation. Including me." "Grant, don't." His voice was flat. "Just don't." A knock at the front door saved me from responding. Gerald stood on our porch, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "May I come in?" Grant didn't move from his study, so I led Gerald to the kitchen. He pulled out a thick envelope. "Thomas is alive," he said without preamble. "In witness protection." These are his sworn statements about what really happened. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. "Why now? Why didn't you stop her years ago?" "Fear." Gerald's voice cracked. "Not of Augusta, of losing everything. The family, the business, my son's respect." By the time I realized the cost of my silence, it seemed too late. "It's never too late for the truth," I said, but the words felt hollow. "Isn't it?" Grant appeared in the doorway. "The truth just destroyed our family, Lila. Are you happy now?" "Grant," Gerald started, but Grant cut him off. "Save it. You're as guilty as she is. You watched her destroy people for years and did nothing." He turned to me. "And you. You couldn't leave well enough alone. Had to play detective, had to be the hero. Your mother tried to kill me. Because you backed her into a corner." The whiskey glass shattered against the wall. "Everything she did for us. And now what do we have? A mother in jail, a family in shambles, and a wife who chose revenge over loyalty." "It wasn't revenge," I whispered. "It was justice." "Justice?" He laughed bitterly. "Tell that to the hundreds of employees who will lose their jobs when this scandal breaks. Tell that to the charities we support. Tell that to our unborn children who will carry this shame." The mention of children hit me like a physical blow. We'd been trying for months, dreaming of a family. Now those dreams felt like ashes in my mouth. "I'm going to stay with Everett," Grant said, already moving toward the door. I need time. Grant, please." I reached for him, but he pulled away. "You won your war, Lila. Congratulations. I hope it was worth it." The door closed behind him with devastating finality. Gerald touched my shoulder gently. "He'll come around," he said. "The truth has a way of settling in, given time." But as I stood in my empty kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage and the weight of Augusta's final smile, I wasn't so sure. I'd started this journey seeking justice, thinking the truth would set us all free. Instead, it had shattered everything I loved. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You should have listened to Augusta. This isn't over. The Sinclairs protect their own." I showed it to Gerald, watching his face pale. "Augusta has friends in high places," he said quietly. "Powerful friends who owe her favors. Maybe we were wrong to think this would end with her arrest." The truth hit me then. I hadn't won anything. I just started a war I wasn't sure I could finish. And now I had to face it alone. Outside, another car pulled up to our house. Through the window, I could see men in expensive suits stepping out, carrying briefcases that probably contained more threats than legal papers. The real battle was just beginning. The visiting room at the county jail smelled like despair and cheap coffee. Augusta sat across from me, still elegant in her orange jumpsuit, her perfect posture unchanged by 3 days of incarceration. "I wondered when you'd come," she said, folding her hands on the metal table. "Have you enjoyed watching my family fall apart?" "Your family?" I leaned forward. "You mean the one you've been manipulating for decades? The one you tried to kill me to protect?" She smiled that razor-sharp smile. "And yet here you are, alone." "Where's Grant?" "Still hiding at Everett's." The jab hit its mark, but I kept my face neutral. "I'm here because your powerful friends are threatening the people I love." "It stops now." "Does it?" Augusta's eyes glittered. "You know, I've had time to think in here. About choices, consequences. About what makes a family strong." She pulled out a folded paper from her pocket. "Sign this." I read it quickly, A statement recanting everything, claiming I'd fabricated the evidence out of jealousy and spite. Never. Then the board will receive proof tomorrow that Grant was involved in the embezzlement. His signature is on quite a few documents. Her voice softened. He'll go to prison, Lila. Is your truth worth that? My hand shook. You'd destroy your own son? I'd do anything to protect this family, even from itself. She pushed the paper closer. Sign it. Save your marriage. Give your future children a father instead of a cautionary tale. The door opened behind me. Grant walked in. Augusta's mask slipped for just a moment. Darling. I heard everything, Mother. His voice was ice. The guards let me listen in. They're recording this conversation. She recovered quickly. Then you understand what's at stake. What she's doing to us. What you're doing to us, he corrected. I found Uncle Thomas. The color drained from Augusta's face. He told me everything, Grant continued. About how you threatened his family when he discovered the embezzlement. How you forced him into hiding. How you've been blackmailing Dad for years. I did it for you. Augusta's composure cracked. Everything I built, every person I removed, it was all to give you boys the perfect family I never had. Perfect? Grant laughed bitterly. You drove Everett away. Terrorized Marissa, nearly destroyed my marriage. That's not family, Mother. That's control. You ungrateful. She lunged across the table, but guards were already moving in. One more thing, I said as they restrained her. Those powerful friends you mentioned? They just got subpoenas from the FBI. Turns out Gerald kept very detailed records. Augusta's face contorted. Gerald? My Gerald. He loved you enough to stop you, Grant said quietly. That's what real family does. As they led Augusta away, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this. Both of you. You have no idea what it takes to keep a family together. No, Mother, Grant called after her. We know exactly what it takes. The truth. In the parking lot, Grant and I stood in awkward silence. I'm sorry, he finally said, for not believing you. For choosing her lies over your truth. I'm sorry, too. For not understanding what this would cost you. He took my hand, tentative. What happens now? Now. I squeezed his hand. We build something real. Something honest. My phone buzzed. A text from Everett. Board meeting tomorrow. They're voting to restructure. Clean slate. A clean slate, Grant echoed, reading over my shoulder. Think we can handle that? I thought about Augusta's perfect facade, about the cost of lies and the weight of truth. About family. Not the kind you're born into, but the kind you choose to build. Together, I said. We'll build it together. Behind us, Augusta's empire was crumbling. But from its ashes, something stronger could grow. Something true. The war was over. Now came the hard part, peace. 6 months later, I stood in Augusta's study, boxing up the last remnants of her carefully curated life. The trial had ended quickly. Too many paper trails, too many witnesses. Now the mansion was being sold, its proceeds going to repay the people she'd hurt. Found something interesting, Gerald said from the doorway, holding a leather-bound book. Augusta's diary. Started the day we got married. I took it carefully, the pages crackling with age. The first entry read, Today I became a Sinclair. I will never be powerless again. She was 19 when her family lost everything, Gerald said quietly. Spent a year in poverty before meeting me. I thought I was rescuing her. Turns out she was building a fortress. And you sent me that first letter, I said. It wasn't a question anymore. He nodded, watching her destroy Marissa and Everett's marriage. I couldn't let it happen again. But I was too much of a coward to act directly. You're here now, I said, touching his arm. That counts for something. Footsteps echoed through the empty house. Grant appeared with another box, Everett behind him. Mom's lawyer called, Grant said. She wants to see us. All of us. The prison visiting room felt smaller this time. Augusta had lost weight, her perfect posture slightly stooped. But her eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. I've been in therapy, she said without preamble. Apparently, I have control issues. A ghost of her old smile flickered. Who knew? Nobody laughed. I won't ask for forgiveness, she continued. But I want you to understand. Everything I did, the manipulation, the lies, it started with love. Twisted, broken love, but love nonetheless. Love doesn't excuse what you did to Thomas, Everett said. To Marissa. To all of us. No, it doesn't. Augusta's hands trembled slightly. But it's why I'm signing over everything. The remaining assets, the family trusts, they're yours now. All of you. She looked at me. Even you, Lila. You were right about one thing. Family is what we choose to build. Grant tensed beside me. Why now? Because control is a prison, she said simply. And I've had enough of prisons. Later that night, in our new home across town, I found Grant in the nursery we'd started planning. The walls were half painted, hope mixed with uncertainty. She'll never meet her grandchild, he said, hand resting on my slightly swollen belly. Not directly, anyway. No, I agreed. But maybe that's better. We get to build something new. My phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. Everett proposed. Again. Said second chances come from telling the truth. You started something, Lila. I showed Grant the message. He smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. Truth as a foundation, he mused. Novel concept for a Sinclair. Former concept, I corrected. We're building our own legacy now. A week later, a package arrived. Inside was Augusta's perfume bottle, Chanel No. 5, and a note. For your daughter. Tell her the truth about me, all of it. Some legacies are warnings, not inspirations. I placed the bottle on a high shelf, visible but out of reach. Like Augusta herself now, a reminder, not a threat. The scent lingered faintly in the air, mixing with the fresh paint and new beginnings. That night, I dreamed of family dinners without hidden agendas, of children growing up without the weight of perfect facades, of truth as a gift rather than a weapon. But in the dream, Augusta's smile still haunted the edges, reminding me that the line between protection and control, between love and possession, was thinner than I'd once believed. Maybe that was the real legacy she'd left us, not the fortune or the family name, but the understanding that every family carries its shadows. The choice isn't whether to acknowledge them, but what to build in spite of them. In the end, that's what revenge gave way to, not destruction, but reconstruction. A chance to build something true from the ashes of necessary endings. The war was over. The healing had begun. And somewhere between justice and mercy, we'd found our way home.
The call came while I was elbow-deep in soapy water, trying to scrub dried spaghetti sauce off Ava's favorite princess plate. My phone buzzed against the kitchen counter, my mother's name flashing on the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail. I already knew what she wanted. My name is Lila, and I've spent most of my life being the responsible one, the reliable daughter who's supposed to fix everything. Sometimes I wonder if that's all I am to them, a human ATM with a guilty conscience. Lila, sweetheart. My mother's voice carried that familiar urgent tone. I hate to ask, but Tess's new treatment plan. I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of the sink. Behind me, I could hear Ava giggling with Rosa, our nanny, as they played with her stuffed animals. The sound of my daughter's laughter used to make everything better, but lately, it just reminded me of how much I needed to protect her from becoming part of this cycle. How much? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. 15,000, my mother said quickly, as if saying it faster would make it hurt less. The insurance won't cover it, and you know your father's business hasn't been doing well. I thought about the college fund I'd started for Ava, and how every extra dollar I made went straight into it. Since Mark died 2 years ago, I'd been careful with our money, making sure we'd be okay. But 15,000? That wasn't careful money. That was survival money. Mom, I can't. Not this time. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came the guilt trip, right on schedule. Your sister needs this, Lila. She's been so sick, and you know how fragile she is. I thought after what happened with Mark, you'd understand how precious life is. My hand tightened around the phone, using Mark's death to manipulate me. That was a new low, even for her. Don't, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Don't you dare use Mark to guilt me into this. I'm not trying to guilt you into anything, she protested, but we both knew better. Tessa's your only sister. Family helps family. I watched as Rosa helped Ava put on her tiny backpack, getting ready for their afternoon walk. My daughter looked up at me with Mark's eyes, and something inside me finally snapped. What about when I needed help? I asked quietly. When Mark died and I could barely get out of bed. When I needed someone to watch Ava, so I could go to grief counseling. Where was family helps family then? That was different, my mother said dismissively. Tessa was going through a particularly bad spell. She always is, Mom. There's always a reason why Tessa needs help more than I do. I don't understand why you're being so selfish. My mother's voice turned cold. After everything we've done for you. I laughed, a hollow sound that surprised even me. Everything you've done for me? Name one thing, Mom. One thing you've done for me that didn't somehow end up being about Tessa. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. When my mother spoke again, her voice was trembling with anger. Well, if that's how you feel, maybe you should take some time to think about your priorities. Your sister could die without this treatment, Lila. I hope you can live with that on your conscience. The call ended, and I stood there, staring at my reflection in the window above the sink. I looked tired, worn down by years of being the family backup plan. But there was something else in my eyes now, a spark of defiance that reminded me of Mark. Mama, Ava tugged at my pants leg. We go park now. I picked her up, breathing in her sweet baby shampoo smell. Yes, baby. Let's go to the park. Rosa, would you mind if I joined you today? As we walked to the park, I made a decision. It was time to stop being the family ATM, the guilty daughter, the reliable fix-it-all. It was time to be something else, something stronger. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I didn't answer it. 3 days after my mother's call, I found myself standing on my parents' doorstep, Ava's small hand in mine. I'd promised myself I wouldn't come, but guilt is a powerful motivator, something my family has always known how to exploit. The door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there, looking exhausted but somehow still managing to wear that expression of disappointed expectation I knew so well. Oh, you brought Ava, she said, her tone suggesting this was somehow inconvenient. Tessa's resting in the living room. She's had such a difficult morning. Of course she was. Tessa was always having a difficult morning, especially when there were important discussions to be had about money. The living room looked like a hospital suite had exploded inside it. Pillows everywhere, medication bottles lined up on the coffee table, and my sister sprawled dramatically on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She barely glanced up when we entered. Aunt Tessa. Ava ran toward her, but my mother intercepted her. Careful, sweetie. Aunt Tessa isn't feeling well today. I watched Tessa suddenly put down her phone and press a hand to her forehead. Oh, my head is killing me. Mom, could you get me some water? And maybe those new pills Dr. Matthews prescribed. My father sat in his usual armchair, hidden behind his newspaper. He lowered it slightly when I entered, giving me a weak smile that didn't reach his eyes. So, my mother said, returning with Tessa's water. Have you reconsidered about helping with the treatment? I took a deep breath. Actually, I wanted to talk about that. I've been looking into this new treatment you mentioned, and I can't find anything about it online. Which clinic is offering it? The room went quiet. Too quiet. Tessa suddenly became very interested in adjusting her blanket. Well, my mother began, it's more of an experimental treatment. Dr. Matthews says. Dr. Matthews? I interrupted. The same Dr. Matthews who prescribed those special supplements last year that turned out to be regular vitamins marked up by 500%. You always do this, Tessa's voice cracked with practiced precision. You always try to make it seem like I'm making things up. Like I'm not really sick. That's not what I'm saying. Yes, it is. Tessa sat up, tears already forming. You're just jealous because Mom and Dad have to spend more time taking care of me. You've always been jealous. My father rustled his newspaper uncomfortably. Girls, please. Jealous. I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Tessa, I just found out you used the money I lent you last month, money that was supposed to be for your emergency medication, to book a spa weekend with your friends. I saw the pictures on Instagram. The room froze. My mother's face went pale, while Tessa's flushed red. You're stalking my social media now? Your account is public, Tessa, and you tagged the spa. My mother stepped between us. Tessa needed that relaxation for her health. The stress has been. Stop it. I cut her off. Just stop. Do you know what I could have done with that money? Ava needs new winter clothes. Her preschool tuition is due next month. But instead, my sister needed a mud bath and a seaweed wrap. You have no idea what it's like to be sick all the time. Tessa wailed. And you have no idea what it's like to be a widow raising a child alone. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. My father finally put down his newspaper. Lila, that's enough. No, it's not enough, I said, my voice shaking. When Mark died, I needed my family. But Tessa had a migraine that week, remember? And the next week. And the week after that. That's not fair, my mother protested. None of this is fair. I picked up Ava, who had been quietly playing with her stuffed rabbit in the corner. I'm done. No more money, no more guilt trips, no more pretending this is normal. As I headed for the door, my mother called after me. If you walk out now, don't expect us to be there when you need us. I turned back one last time. Were you ever? The drive home was quiet, except for Ava singing softly to her rabbit in the back seat. My phone kept buzzing with messages from my mother and Tessa, but I didn't need to read them to know what they said. The same old script, just with different words. But something had changed today. For the first time, I saw my family clearly. Not as I wished they were, but as they actually are. And sometimes that kind of clarity is worth more than any amount of money they could ask for. A week after my confrontation at my parents' house, I received an unexpected email from their bank. At first, I assumed it was spam. Why would their bank contact me? But the subject line made my stomach drop. Past due notice, co-signed loan agreement. I hadn't co-signed any loans. My hands shook as I opened the email. There it was in black and white. My name on a $60,000 loan, supposedly signed 6 months ago. The same month Tessa had her emergency surgery that my parents had begged me to help with. I called the bank immediately, my voice trembling as I spoke with the representative. There must be some mistake. I never signed any loan documents. We have the paperwork right here, Miss Grant. Your signature is on all the forms. My signature. But not signed by me. I drove to my parents' house in a daze, barely registering the familiar streets. When I pulled into their driveway, I noticed Tessa's new car parked outside, a luxury SUV that definitely hadn't been there during my last visit. My father answered the door this time, his face falling when he saw my expression. Lila, this isn't a good time. Did you forge my signature on a loan application? The color drained from his face. Behind him, I heard my mother's voice. Richard? Who's at the door? I pushed past him into the house. My mother stood in the hallway, while Tessa lounged on her usual spot on the couch, now scrolling through her phone on a brand new iPad. You committed fraud, I said, my voice eerily calm. You forged my signature and took out a loan in my name. My mother stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Sweetheart, we can explain. The $60,000 wasn't for medical bills, was it? I looked at Tessa's new car through the window, then at her iPad. It was for this. All of this. We had no choice, my father said quietly. The bank wouldn't approve another loan in our names. We're already underwater on the mortgage because of me, Tessa interrupted, finally looking up from her device. Just say it, Dad. Because you had to refinance the house to pay for my treatments. Treatments? I laughed bitterly. Like that spa weekend? Or that designer handbag collection you posted about last week. You don't understand how hard it is, Tessa began, but I cut her off. No, I understand perfectly now. You're not sick, Tessa. You're spoiled. And you too. I turned to my parents. You're not just enablers anymore. You're criminals. My mother's face hardened. Everything we've done has been for this family. Family? I pulled out my phone. Should I call the police? Let them decide if fraud is a family value. You wouldn't dare. Tessa sat up straight, real fear in her eyes for the first time. Why not? Because we're family? Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't commit fraud. Family shows up when you're grieving your husband, not makes excuses about migraines. My father stepped between us. Lila, please. We'll figure something out. We can sell the car, return things. Too late, I said, my voice breaking. The payments are already 3 months behind. My credit is ruined. Do you know what that means for Ava's future? For our stability. We'll fix it, my mother insisted. Just give us time. Time. I pulled up the bank's email on my phone. You have until tomorrow to get that loan transferred out of my name, or I'm going to the police. And don't think I'm bluffing. I have nothing left to lose. As I turned to leave, Tessa called out, You're really going to destroy this family over money? I stopped at the door, not turning around. You all destroyed this family long ago. I'm just finally admitting it. Driving home, I called Rosa to check on Ava. Hearing my daughter's laughter in the background, I made a promise to myself. This ended now. No more manipulation, no more guilt, no more fraud. Tomorrow they'd either fix this or I'd fix it for them. Either way, something had to break. And for once, it wouldn't be me. The deadline came and went. No call from my parents, no transfer of the loan, just silence. I sat in my car outside the police station, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The manila folder on the passenger seat contained every document I needed to file charges: bank statements, forged signatures, evidence of fraud. My phone buzzed. A text from Rosa, Ava asking for bedtime story. Coming home soon. Before I could reply, another message popped up from my father's business partner, James. Need to talk. It's about your parents. Urgent. 20 minutes later, I sat across from James in a quiet coffee shop, watching him pull documents from his briefcase. His face looked grave, older than I remembered. Your father doesn't know I'm showing you these, he said, sliding several papers across the table. The business isn't just struggling, Lila. It's bankrupt. Has been for months. I stared at the numbers, the mounting debts, the bounced checks. But they just bought Tessa a new car, with money that should have gone to paying employees. James leaned forward. 3 months of missed payroll. People with families, mortgages. Your father's been taking out loans everywhere he can, trying to keep it afloat. While Tessa shops designer brands, I muttered. There's more. James hesitated. The business insurance lapsed last month. If anyone gets hurt on site. My stomach churned. Why are you telling me this? Because your father saved my business 20 years ago when I was in trouble. But I can't help him now, not with the choices he's making. He stood up, straightening his tie. Whatever you're planning to do about the fraud, just know everything it might impact. I sat there long after James left, staring at the documents. My phone kept buzzing, Rosa, wondering where I was. My mother, probably with more excuses. Tessa, surely playing victim again. Instead of answering any of them, I drove to my old neighborhood. The construction company's office was dark, but I used my old key to let myself in. The place smelled like sawdust and memories, summers helping Dad file papers, learning about building permits, dreaming about taking over someday. I found what I was looking for in the bottom drawer of Dad's desk: photo albums. Not the fancy ones Mom kept at home, but the real ones. Job sites, company picnics, employee celebrations. 20 years of people whose livelihoods depended on this business. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. Lila. My father's voice sounded small. The bank called about the loan. I know about the business, Dad. About everything. Silence stretched between us. Then, who told you? Does it matter? What matters is there are families who aren't getting paid while Tessa drives around in a new car. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. I cut him off. I'm not just protecting myself anymore. This isn't about family drama or playing favorites. There are innocent people getting hurt. Please, his voice cracked. Just give me time to fix this. I looked at the photos spread across his desk. Faces of people who trusted him, trusted this company. You have until tomorrow morning to tell Mom and Tessa the truth. About everything. Or I go to the police with all of it, the fraud, the missed payroll, everything. You'd destroy your own family? You're destroying families right now, Dad. I'm just deciding which ones to save. I hung up and drove home, where I found Rosa reading to a sleepy Ava. My daughter reached for me with heavy eyes, and I held her close, breathing in her baby shampoo smell. Bad day? Rosa asked quietly. Just complicated, I replied, watching Ava drift off in my arms. Sometimes doing the right thing feels an awful lot like betrayal. Rosa patted my shoulder as she gathered her things to leave. Sometimes betrayal is staying silent when we should speak up. I sat in the darkness with my sleeping daughter, thinking about choices and consequences, about the difference between revenge and justice. Tomorrow would change everything. Either way, there was no going back. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Tessa. Whatever you're planning, don't. You'll regret it. I turned off my phone without replying. Some regrets, I was learning, were easier to live with than others. The next morning, I walked into my parents' house using my key, only to find Tessa already there. Pacing the living room in designer workout gear she'd probably never used. Mom sat rigid on the couch while Dad stood by the window, looking years older than he had yesterday. Finally, Tessa spat. Come to destroy everything, have you? I placed my laptop on the coffee table, opening it to display the police department's website. I'm here to watch Dad tell the truth. All of it. Mom's face paled. Richard, what is she talking about? Before Dad could answer, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Martinez Construction, his largest client. His hands shook as he answered, walking into the kitchen for privacy. We all heard him anyway. What do you mean pulling out of the contract? We've worked together for 15 years. Tessa shot me an accusatory glare. What did you do? I didn't do anything, I replied truthfully. But secrets have a way of spreading. Dad returned, his face ashen. They're canceling all projects. Someone told them about the missed payroll. You did this, Mom pointed at me, her voice trembling. You're trying to ruin us. No, you did this, I countered, pulling out James's documents. Every time you chose Tessa's luxuries over paying employees. Every time you forged my signature instead of facing reality. Oh, here we go again, Tessa rolled her eyes. Poor overlooked Lila, always jealous of her sick sister. I laughed, a hollow sound that surprised even me. Sick. Show them, Tessa. Show them your medical records, the real ones, not the ones you've been faking. The room went deadly quiet. What is she talking about? Mom turned to Tessa, whose face had gone from angry to frightened. She's lying, Tessa whispered, but her hand unconsciously went to her purse, clutching it closer. Your daughter's been scamming you for years, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Those expensive treatments? Spa weekends? Those special medications? Shopping sprees. And you both enabled it, bankrupted Dad's company for it, committed fraud for it. That's not. Mom began, but I cut her off by reaching for Tessa's purse. Tessa yanked it away, but not before several prescription bottles fell out. Empty bottles with different doctors' names, different pharmacies. Dad picked one up, examining the label. This prescription. It's forged. Like my signature? I asked quietly. Mom stood up, swaying slightly. Tessa, tell them they're wrong. Tell them you're really sick. But Tessa's face had changed, morphing from fear to something harder, colder. What was I supposed to do? You both made it so easy, falling over yourselves to help poor, fragile Tessa. At least I got something out of being your daughter. The slap echoed through the room. Mom stood there, hand still raised, staring at Tessa's reddening cheek. The police are coming, I said into the silence. I called them this morning. They'll want to talk about the fraud, the forged prescriptions, everything. You'd send your own sister to jail? Dad asked, his voice breaking. No, I replied, standing up. I'm giving you one chance to fix this. Pay back the employees. Sell Tessa's car, her clothes, whatever it takes. Transfer that loan out of my name. Or I press charges against all of you. You can't do this to me, Tessa pleaded, suddenly looking very young and scared. I'm your sister. My sister died a long time ago, I said, gathering my things. She died every time she watched me grieve alone, every time she took advantage of our parents' love, every time she chose greed over family. As I reached the door, Mom called out, If you do this, you'll never see us again. I turned back one last time, seeing them all there, Mom's shocked betrayal, Dad's defeated slump. Tessa's mask finally cracking to show the scared girl beneath. I haven't really seen you in years, I said softly. I've just been looking at reflections of who I wished you were. The drive home felt longer than usual. My phone kept buzzing with texts from all of them, but I didn't need to read them. Sometimes the hardest part of revenge isn't executing it, it's living with the aftermath. 3 weeks after my ultimatum, I sat in my kitchen at midnight, staring at an eviction notice. The bank had frozen my accounts due to the fraud investigation, and my savings were depleted from covering the fraudulent loan payments. Even Rosa had to find other work. I couldn't afford her help anymore. My phone lit up with a text from James. Your father filed for bankruptcy today. Thought you should know. I deleted it without responding, just like I'd deleted all the others. The news articles about the construction company's collapse. The desperate messages from my mother. Tessa's threats to tell everyone I'd ruined the family. Ava's cough echoed from her bedroom, the same cough she'd had for days. The pediatrician wanted tests, expensive ones our insurance might not cover now that everything was frozen. I pressed my palms against my eyes, fighting back tears. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing there, alone. She looked smaller, somehow older. I opened the door but kept the chain on. What do you want? Your father had a heart attack. The words hung between us like smoke. I found myself unlatching the chain before I could think better of it. When? This morning. After the bankruptcy hearing. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He's stable, but he keeps asking for you. Don't, I warned, hearing the manipulation in her voice. I'm not trying to, she stopped, sighing. Tessa's gone. She emptied what was left in their accounts and disappeared. Left a note saying she's starting over somewhere else. Of course she had. Tessa always knew when to abandon a sinking ship. I'm sorry about Dad, I said, starting to close the door. But I can't. I know what I did wrong. Mom blurted out. With you. With everything. I know now, and I'm sorry, but please. He might not make it, Lila. Ava coughed again, harder this time. Mom heard it. Is she sick? I can't afford the tests, I admitted, hating the words, hating that I had to say them. The accounts are frozen because of the fraud investigation, and the eviction notice came today, and I can't do this anymore. Mom reached for her purse, but I stopped her. No. No more money between us. It's what poisoned everything in the first place. Then let me help with Ava. While you figure things out. I know I don't deserve it, but… You're right, I cut her off. You don't deserve it. Where were you when Mark died? When I needed someone to watch Ava, so I could plan his funeral. When I cried myself to sleep every night for months. I was wrong, she whispered. So wrong. But please don't punish your father for my mistakes. Don't punish Ava for them either. Ava appeared in the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Mama, my chest hurts. I picked her up, feeling the heat of her fever through her pajamas. She needed a doctor. I needed help, but accepting help from them, it felt like giving up everything I'd fought for. The guest room at the house is still yours, Mom said softly. Just until you figure things out. No strings, no guilt. I'll stay with your father at the hospital if you want space. I looked at my daughter's flushed face, then at the eviction notice on the counter. Sometimes the hardest part of being strong is knowing when to bend. One night, I said finally, just until I can get Ava to the doctor. Mom nodded, not pushing her luck. As she turned to leave, she paused. I found Mark's old letters in the attic. The ones he wrote you in college. I never realized how much he saw in you. How much I failed to see. She left the letters on the counter and walked out, leaving me holding my feverish daughter and staring at the last pieces of the life I thought I'd built. Everything was falling apart, and I couldn't tell anymore if it was because of my revenge or in spite of it. Ava coughed again, burying her face in my neck. Are we going to be okay, Mama? I wished I could tell her yes. I wished I could be sure. Instead, I held her tighter and started packing an overnight bag, wondering if sometimes rock bottom is just another word for starting over. 2 days after moving back into my parents' house, I found Tessa sitting in the kitchen. She looked different. Expensive clothes replaced by a plain sundress, her perfectly styled hair now messy and natural. And she was obviously pregnant. Surprise, she said flatly, resting one hand on her swollen belly. Guess we're both back home. I instinctively moved to block the stairs leading to where Ava was sleeping. What are you doing here? Same as you. Nowhere else to go. She smiled bitterly. Karma's funny like that, isn't it? Mom appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. Tessa called from the bus station. Her husband left her, and she's… Let me guess, I cut in. She needs help. She needs money. She needs everyone to forget what she did and welcome her back with open arms. I lost everything, Tessa snapped. My husband, my home, my life. All because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about a few little white lies. White lies? I laughed. You bankrupted our father's company. He had a heart attack because of what you did. What we did, Mom corrected quietly. We all played our parts. Upstairs, Ava started coughing again. The sound seemed to startle Tessa, who flinched. Is that? She hesitated. Is she okay? Like you care, I said, turning to head upstairs. I do care. Tessa's voice cracked. I know I messed up, okay? I know I was selfish and horrible, and everything else you want to call me. But I'm trying to change. This baby, it's making me see things differently. I stopped, not turning around. Like how you saw things differently when Mark died. When I needed my sister, and you were too busy faking illnesses to show up at his funeral. I was scared, she whispered. Scared that if I stopped being the sick one, the special one, nobody would love me anymore. And now I'm just scared. I finally turned to face her. In the harsh kitchen light, I could see the dark circles under her eyes, the tear stains on her cheeks. She looked like the little sister I used to know, before everything went wrong. Mom says you're staying in the guest room, Tessa continued. I can take the couch. No, I said firmly. This isn't happening. We're not playing happy family while Dad's in the hospital, and everyone pretends the past never happened. Lila, please. Mom stepped forward. She's pregnant, she has nowhere else to go. And whose fault is that? I demanded. You taught her that there would always be a safety net, always be someone to clean up her messes. Well, I won't do it anymore. Not for her, not for you. Then do it for this baby, Tessa pleaded, tears falling now. Don't let my child suffer for my mistakes. The irony hit me like a slap. Like you let Ava suffer? Like you let me suffer? Some mistakes don't get second chances, Tessa. Ava's coughing grew worse upstairs. As I turned to go to her, Tessa grabbed my arm. I found Mark's letters too, she said quickly. The ones from when I was really sick as a teenager. He wrote to me every week while I was in the hospital, even though he barely knew me. Just because I was your sister. I jerked away from her touch. Don't you dare use Mark. He believed in second chances, she pressed on. He believed people could change. You used to believe that too, before I ruined everything. Upstairs, Ava called out for me. The sound seemed to echo through the kitchen, through years of hurt and betrayal and missed chances. You have until Dad comes home from the hospital, I said finally. Then you need to figure out your own life. I won't let Ava grow up watching this cycle repeat itself. As I headed upstairs, I heard Tessa start to cry. Real tears this time, not the manipulative ones I'd grown so used to. Mom murmured something comforting to her, and for a moment, I almost turned back. Almost. But some bridges, once burned, leave scars too deep to cross again. The trick is learning which ones are worth rebuilding, and which ones should stay in ashes. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, watching Ava arrange her stuffed animals on her bed. The place was smaller than our old home, but it was ours, really ours, with no strings or guilt attached. The bank had finally unfrozen my accounts after Dad testified about the fraud. He'd taken responsibility for everything, protecting Tessa one last time. She'd disappeared again 2 days after he came home from the hospital, leaving only a note saying she was checking into a real treatment center this time. Mom still sent me updates about her progress, though I never responded. The doorbell rang. Rosa stood outside, holding a casserole dish. I was in the neighborhood, she said, though we both knew she'd driven across town. How is the Pequeña's cough? Better. I let her in, watching as Ava ran to hug her. The new medication helped. Rosa set the dish down and pulled an envelope from her purse. This came to your old address. I thought, maybe you should have it. I recognized Mark's handwriting immediately. The letter was dated 3 days before his accident, addressed to my parents. Where did you find this? Your mother gave it to me. Said it was time you had it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Dear Helen and Richard, I'm writing because I know how hard it is for Lila to stand up to you. She loves you, but that love shouldn't cost her herself. One day, she'll realize she's strong enough to choose her own happiness. When that day comes, please let her go. Some daughters need to break free to become who they're meant to be. Love, Mark. The doorbell rang again. This time my parents stood outside. Mom held a small package, while Dad leaned heavily on his cane, a permanent reminder of his heart attack. We're not staying, Mom said quickly, seeing my expression. We found these while packing up the house. She handed me the package. Inside were photos, ones I'd never seen before. Me and Tessa as kids before the manipulation started. Pictures of Mark and me that I thought were lost. Recent ones of Ava that I hadn't known they'd taken. The house sold yesterday, Dad said quietly. We paid back the employees first, like you asked. There's enough left to start over somewhere smaller. And Tessa, she's doing the work this time. Real work. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Sometimes it takes losing everything to find yourself. I thought about Mark's letter, about breaking free and becoming who you're meant to be. I can't go back, I said finally, to how things were, to who I was. We know, Dad replied. We're not asking you to. Mom reached into her purse, pulling out one last envelope. This is Tessa's new address. If you ever want to write to her, well, it's your choice. Everything is your choice now. They turned to leave, but Dad paused. We were wrong, Lila. About so many things. But we were most wrong about not seeing how strong you are. After they left, I sat with Rosa while Ava showed her new room layout. The envelope with Tessa's address sat unopened on the counter, a question I wasn't ready to answer. What will you do? Rosa asked softly. I looked at the photos, at Mark's letter, at my daughter playing freely without the weight of family dysfunction hanging over her. I'll keep them, I said, gathering the memories into a box. For Ava when she's older. So she knows where she came from, but also why we chose to go somewhere else. And Tessa's address? I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. Some bridges need to stay burned, so we don't cross them again. But others. I tucked the envelope into the box without opening it. Others might be worth rebuilding someday. Just not today. Rosa nodded, understanding what I couldn't quite say. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying everything. Sometimes it's about building something new from the ashes. Something stronger and truer than what came before. Ava called me to see her finished room arrangement, and I left the box of memories behind. We had our own story to write now, one without guilt or manipulation or false obligations. One where we could both become who we were meant to be.